Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast. Here is your host.
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Rick Bucher. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report, and you can find me on Twitter at Rick Bucher. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. And it is a Wednesday, which means that I am joined by a guest, and my guest today is NBA champion Richard Jefferson, who is now retired. And I have to ask you, other than watching, so we're recording this, and I got a text from Richard saying, I'm watching Michael Cohen, so I'll be ready. And I took that literally, like you thought I was going to cross-examine you like Michael Cohen. So you were prepping by watching his performance. But other than watching convicted personal lawyers pull the covers on sitting presidents, how is retirement going for you?
Well, come on, Rick. Let's give everybody the full disclosure. So this is what happened. Yesterday, Rick and I tried to connect. We didn't connect. We saw each other on a plane flight. We talked about doing this podcast. We tried to connect yesterday. I had a CBS show that I had to do. It whooped my ass, so I missed your phone call this morning. And so you were like, hey, I'll try you again at 11:30. And then I said, hey, good, I'll be awake. I'm just watching Cohen. So that's the full disclosure. I apologize, Rick. I apologize to your people. I made Rick wake up at 5:30 a.m. on the West Coast, and I still missed this phone call. But all that being said, I'm ready.
Excellent. And I'm glad to have you in any event because I've always enjoyed our conversations. You've always been there for me, and I knew something extraordinary had to have happened. I honestly, I was hoping you were okay. I was just because we've had some weather out here on the West Coast. Our power was out all day yesterday, so yeah, there's things happening to people. So I'm glad that you're here. And as you mentioned, we ran into each other at the airport, and we've known each other for a long time. And I thought, okay, he's got to be on the same flight as I am. And I kind of called out to you, hey, I didn't want to use your name. Hey, what's going on? And you had like the 1,000-yard stare. And I recognized that immediately as someone who's in the public eye a lot, and they don't make eye contact because it means, now I'm going to be drawn into a conversation or something's going to happen that I don't have control over. I finally got your attention, and then you told me that, you were on my flight, but you were going to a different gate, which gave me the idea of one of the couple of things that I wanted to discuss with you, which is just all the tricks of the trade when you are as recognizable as a Richard Jefferson, like how you go about managing your life in the public eye, traveling around when you're no longer on team planes and kind of having that courtesy.
Well, let me first say this, right? I'm very fortunate and blessed that, people recognize me as part of our profession. Like, you get it. So you never disrespect fans. You never, want to be in that spot. But a lot of that is putting yourself in a position to avoid being recognized. Mm-hmm. Another thing I'll say is look, I'm not LeBron James. I'm not Kobe Bryant. These guys can't go anywhere. Right. I'm just somebody that people might recognize. It's fine. So for some of the tricks of the trade, some of the things I do is just little bitty things that it's like, look, if you're first on your flight, like if you're flying first class, doesn't mean I'm fancy. It just means I'm 6'7", 240 pounds. I need a little bit extra space on a 6-hour flight. Mm-hmm. That basically means that I don't board first. Because if you board first and everyone sees you, because that's one of the luxuries of first class is that you get to board first. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't do that. I board last, right? Because if not, everyone gets to see you walking by. They're like, oh, hey, Richard, hey, can I get a picture when we get off? I've had people ask if they can take a picture, and I'll be if I'm sitting on the window side, they'll make the person on the aisle side. I've gotten mad at the person on the aisle side before because they're like, hey, can I get a picture? And the person on the aisle gets up and was like, all right, here, let me get out of the way. And I'm like, I didn't even say yes yet. Right. What? Right? And so, most of the time, and honestly, and again, out of respect for people that are sitting next to me or in that, you try and board last. So I board last, so then that way most of the people have boarded. But the only way to do that is to sit at a different terminal. So if you
or different gate,
or data sit at a gate. Excuse me. If you sit at your gate and people see you, and then you get on first, and then everyone walks by you, you're more apt to have some sort of fan experience or which it's okay. It's cool. It's a moment. You don't say no. But if you put yourself in a position to not be asked, it helps sometimes.
Yeah. No, 100%. And there's the Rick Bucher level of celebrity. There's the Richard Jefferson level of celebrity. And then obviously, as you mentioned, LeBron, Kobe, Steph level of celebrity. And as you said, I've always been flattered by people recognizing me or wanting to say hi or take a picture or whatever it is. But it's also like, there's a lot of situations where you're trying to get something done. You have conversations that you have to have or business you have to take care of, and it's a tricky line. You don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time, it's like I have to be able to kind of live my life as well. I will tell you, when it first happened to me, when I was first appearing on TV on a regular basis, and I would have people just randomly say, "Hey, Rick, how you doing?" I would look at them and I'd feel like, okay, I don't remember them. Like, where am I supposed to know that? And I would feel bad that I didn't know that. I mean, I'm not a very good faker when it comes to pretending. And then I realized you know what? I don't know them. They know me from TV. And so they think they know me. And I don't know about you, but that was always a little tricky for me too, is if you did engage somebody and they would have like this presumption of who you were or what you were about. And those were just awkward conversations for me that kind of made me want to avoid that interaction too.
No, I agree. One of those things is like you do a podcast, or for me, where I live in Hermosa Beach, a lot of people know I'm really big into yoga. I own two yoga studios in my community. So I have people come up to me, and not saying you have to be nice, but if you're in an industry where people pay to go to your yoga studio, or you're in an industry like a podcast where people have to click to subscribe, you are actually in a more vulnerable position while you're outside in the public space, right? And look, one thing I say is everyone has bad days. That's part of the reason why I allow people to be kind of short-tempered or this, because I'm like, look, everyone's allowed to have a bad day. You don't know. I remember there was a picture a cab driver, Channing Frye was in a cab, and it was like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. He had probably had a few beverages, and this guy posted this picture of like, man, Channing Frye just got in my cab. Oh my God. He's like talking to him on the phone about how the cab's lost, and it looks like he's drunk. So this guy takes a picture without him asking. What this guy doesn't know is that this was the anniversary of Channing's mom passing away. And his brother lives in New York, and they went to go visit their mom at the gravesite, and then after that he went out and drank. So this was a really emotional time for Channing, right? Yeah, he was like, we all lose games, we're bummed about that, but the guy didn't know the backstory. And it's not that the guy is supposed to know the backstory, but a person should never be just taking random pictures of someone in a vulnerable space. Now you say, well, he's a celebrity, he should expect that. That's fine. I get it. But the only way I can compare it to people, if you take a picture of me without me knowing, right? Or like if I'm just kind of sitting there and you kind of click a random picture, it's no different than the guys that take pictures of women on the subway, right? It's the same type of creep level. And it's like, oh, well, you're famous, you should expect that. If you're saying, well, she's attractive, she should expect that. And I know this is kind of a weird thing, but I'm just trying to give people an idea about there's this weird evasion of privacy that people will just kind of randomly snap a photo. And it's like, dude, no one holds their phone like that. I know you're taking a picture of it. Or all of a sudden the flash will go off. And they're like, I was trying to take a selfie. It's like, no, you weren't. Right? And it's like, it's okay. I've actually had people do that and then come, hey, I'm sorry. I'm just a big fan. Can I take a picture? It's like, that's like my child. My child grabs the cookie and then asks for the cookie. Like, no, put it back. But no, put it back. You don't get a cookie now.
Right.
And it's just, you try and have fun with people, but understanding that there are certain things, like when I'm with my kids, I never get to see my kids. You know our travel schedule. My travel schedule. I'm away from my family for 10 days. I had to leave on my one son's birthday. And they're 2 and they're 4 and they're young. But then when I get an opportunity to go with them, I just need to be dad. So if I'm holding my son and someone's like, hey, can I get a picture? That's a moment where it's not even me being a dick. It's just like, I'm not going to put down my son to take a picture. 2, I don't want my son in
your picture
with in your picture, right? So I'm just like, hey, and you say it very polite, like, hey, typically not, when I'm with my family, I try not to take any photos. Yeah. So I've had a person like my wife took my kids like to go to Starbucks at an airport and like, hey, now that your family's gone, can I get a picture? And you're like, dude, what? It's like, look, and the other part about it is, and this, and you've been around it and you've seen it just because you're in our world, is that people don't know. They see one person take a picture. I'm a tall black guy, 6'7". Then they're like, oh, you must play sports.
Right.
So one person might know who I am, and then the next two people just want to take a picture because they saw someone else take a picture and they don't want to miss out on the opportunity. There's that kind of FOMO, experience going on. So so like if you say yes to one, then you have to say yes to the other. I get on my own personal friends. Right, when we're like out drinking or we're out having fun at a concert. They're like, come on, Richard, let's get in the picture. And I was like, I would prefer not to.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, really? I've known you since we were 15. And I'm like, yes. But the minute these people don't know that I've known you since we were 15. So the minute I take a picture, someone else is going to walk up. Oh, well, you just took a picture with her. And then I'm in a position to explain myself. Well, I've known her since we were kids. This is one. And why am I explaining myself to you? I can't take a picture right now.
Yeah. And to be clear, like we're not discussing this. And I wanted to discuss this as a subject, not because it affords the opportunity to complain about celebrity or any of that, but it is, I feel as if there's a better understanding on both sides of the equation, then we can all get along. And it's just a matter of, and I have seen this all the time, it does rub me the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way actually when media do it too. When the feeling is that somebody who's a celebrity or an athlete or whatever, that they're public property and that the rules of decorum of treating somebody as a human being are, well, that doesn't matter because you know what? Because you make so much money, you should put up with this. That's the thing that really gets me. You have this life and you have all these things. So you know what? You should put up with the rudeness of someone not treating you like a human being. And again, there's a lot afforded to be who you are and what you've done and what I've had the opportunity to do and being around the NBA. But it doesn't excuse, for me, rudeness. And I think if people just see, and the reason I wanted to talk about this, because if they kind of recognize you not as a statistic and a contract and all of that, but as a human being, there might be some understanding, and maybe we just ultimately we'll all get what we want.
So, Rick, did you see, again, I don't want to date your thing, but in a very recent game, a kid reached out and touched Russell Westbrook.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
This kid reached out and touched him. Now, let me say this, because it was with the Denver Nuggets. That kid and his family sit courtside every single game, right? I'll see Will Barton go up and give the kid a hug, hold the kid. I don't remember the family's name. The minute I saw that, I recognized the kid. Right. This is a pure basketball fan. This is a pure basketball family. These are people that have interaction with the Nuggets players before every warm-ups. They are the epitome of a basketball family. Right. Like I know this from playing in Jersey for 7 years. There were kids that I saw show up there at 3, and then I was invited to their bar mitzvah because I saw them at every single game and every playoff run, and some of them would even go to road games. So, like, there are basketball families, like NBA families that just love the sport. So I recognized the kid as soon as it happened. And for him, his reaction is, oh, my God, Russell Westbrook's right here. I want to touch him. He didn't touch him. He didn't push him. I want to touch Russell Westbrook. Like kind of when you're in the museum and it says, don't touch the art, right? But he was like, he's a kid. And he was like, oh, my God, I want to touch him. And Russ, I love Russ. Russ, his energy, I love so much about Russ. And
Agreed.
So he handled it like, really, kid? Really? And so he took it as a moment to like, hey, you can't touch. And Russell has a little bit of a history with fans and people yelling, and him, sometimes his energy can spill over into the crowd, and the crowd tries to match his energy, especially people courtside. But that's what you're talking about. Like, that's a speaking moment for a parent to be like, hey, if we're here, you do never do that again.
Yep.
Right? You never touch anybody. This is a privilege. This is a special opportunity. I don't care if you're here every day for the rest of your life. You
Yep.
never touch anyone. You never do that. You never do it to the ref. You never cuss at a player. You never cuss at a referee. You sit here and you show respect. And I'm not, obviously Russell doesn't have 10 minutes to give a speech to a kid, but that's a perfect example of what you're saying. It's like sometimes you can get in the space. Now, a kid, 100%, and the kid probably is 8 or 9 years old, so I completely forgive him. He 100% has that right, that opportunity. But then it falls onto the parents.
Yep.
Because like parents get into a weird space too, where like I'll be holding my son, and someone will come up to you and say, hey, my grandson wants to take a picture. And it's like, now as a parent or as an adult, I understand you're going to take the bullet for your kid, right? That's fine. I respect that. But at the same point in time, you should also see that a person is with their family and like, hey, maybe this is not the best time. Maybe if we see him, blah, blah, blah. So it's such a weird thing. And like, even here, some people might be listening to my conversation and go, God, what a pompous, arrogant, jerk. I would never want to. And that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying if you see me in line at the bank, 100%, let's take a selfie. You see me in line at Starbucks, 100%, let's take a selfie. You see me at a one-on-one dinner and I'm sitting down eating ribs, I don't want to dap you up. Right? I don't want to. That's not a moment to dap you up. You see me holding my kids or you see me with my family, that's not a time to dap you up. If we're at a concert or we're at a bar, restaurant where there's alcohol involved, that's not a time to take a picture, right? So there's a courtesy thing because that statement of you never want to meet your heroes because they'll let you down. My only goal in this conversation, I think yours is too, is to say, hey, how can we help the experience when you do meet someone you're excited, right? Because the last thing you want to do is be bummed out because you didn't get to take a picture with someone because they were holding their kid, but now you're pissed off and your favorite player that you own his jersey, you're mad at him because he didn't want to take a picture where really and truly that might not have been the best time because he was with his family or he was in a position where it wouldn't have been wise for him to do that.
100%. Yeah. And I don't know whether we're helping. I hope we're helping the cause in saying this. It is a challenging conversation, and for all I know, we're losing listeners and subscribers left and right as they hear this, thinking, "Oh my God, can you believe what these guys are addressing?" But I feel it's like so many things. Like we're so afraid to offend or to broach a subject that is a difficult subject that then we just kind of pass it on and people maintain their preconceived notions. And I don't want to see that to happen because I feel as if it has become more challenging and it's easier, honestly, when it comes to, you mentioned like LeBron and Steph and whatever, the celebrity and the ability to separate the people who truly have an emotional investment in teams and players from those players and those teams. I think it's that divide is becoming greater, and it's not necessarily good for the sport or for any of us. And yet, I understand kind of why it happens. I want to get on to a couple of other things because you have such great insight to these. And the first is just we're watching. Obviously, you're based in LA, but you played with LeBron. There's so much that you know about him, and people are debating now. To a great degree, are we seeing LeBron James fall off? Are we seeing Father Time finally tap him on the shoulder? And I just wonder from your perspective, as you watch him play and you watch what's going on with the Lakers, what do you see in LeBron right now?
Wow, it's weird because I obviously Luke Walton is a brother of mine, right? We've been best friends since we were 17, 18 years old. LeBron James is someone that I probably a top 2 or 3 person that I respect in the game of basketball. And that's from a space of playing the game since I was 8 years old on various levels. So when I look at the situation and I look at all of it, it's what a gumbo or a jambalaya where you have a bunch of things that look like they're meshed together.
Yes.
But when you go to sample it, it tastes amazing. And you're like, what is this concoction?
Yeah.
And then sometimes you put all these things together and it just doesn't taste right. Uh-huh. And it's like one too much of an ingredient or one not enough of an ingredient can throw off a whole thing. And, you look at this whole thing and you look at the construct of the team at the very, very beginning. There was, I was talking to someone involved with the San Antonio situation. And they're like, we just have all of these young guys, and then we have these older guys. We have no connectivity between the two. So, trying to, do things and, see San Antonio struggling, right? Like San Antonio Spurs, the epitome of consistency with 2 all-stars and 2 probably future Hall of Famers that are in the prime of their career just went 1-6 on a rodeo road trip. Right. So like teams go through this, like Pop, who is the greatest coach, in modern day NBA history, it has struggled out the gates, and they're in I think the 7th spot or the 8th spot, but they have played awful. But why has there not been the same notice? Yeah, as you can say, San Antonio, it's a small market, but also because there's so much stability from top to bottom that a lot of noise gets pushed out.
Yeah.
So with the Lakers, I just see that, there's instability about Luke's job. There's, people are questioning whether or not Magic Johnson really knows what he's doing. There's instability because Rob Pelinka and Magic have never put a team together. Then you have LeBron James and, his injury where they were in a great spot before he got injured and before Rondo got injured. I always tell people Rondo got injured in the same day on Christmas. They beat the Warriors on Christmas Day, and they were 4th in the West, and they were playing great. And then 2 guys, their 2 veteran leaders, got injured in the same game. And then all of a sudden, it started to kind of break down. And so when I look at this situation, I don't think we're seeing the end of LeBron James. We all know that eventually that's coming. We've all marveled at his ability to defy Father Time, very similar to a Tom Brady. But what I see is I see a guy that doesn't look 100% healthy. I see not a lot of connectivity between the young guys and the old guys. I see a lot of, from up top down low, I see a lot of people searching for the answer, right? They're searching for how to get this thing right. I think you underestimate, and I'm being really honest, that trade deadline messed up 3 teams. It messed up the Celtics, who weren't even able to make a trade, weren't even able to make a trade. And you look at the way they played, been playing awful, right? Then you talk about what it did to the Lakers. And then obviously the Pelicans are in disarray. They fired Dell Demps. They're not really playing Anthony Davis. So 3 teams got messed up because of the inexperience across the board in that one situation, right? And I think when you look at Bron being injured, I think you look at the construct of their team. If they weren't healthy throughout the year, and no one expected LeBron to be injured because that's not what he does, then they were going to struggle anyway, right? And so for all these people that say, well, give me one example of Luke Walton being a good coach, you're like, wait a second. Every year these teams have got better. There's never been any problems inside their locker room in the last 3 years that he's been coach, given all the drama, right? So it's just, when you look at this, it's like all of this goes into a pot, and you're like, yeah, something's just off. And it's not one thing. It's a combination of multiple things. And you can just see that it's just a ton of disarray.
I'm glad you brought that up, especially I'm you as much as anybody as far as the Luke LeBron relationship. And I'm with you. I think that Luke is a really good coach. Is he a young coach? Obviously, he's a young coach. And he was hired to coach a team that was constructed different under different management than what we have right now. How much do you know, or how much do you sense of like where LeBron and his timeline is and where Luke is in his timeline as a coach, and how much of, obviously people have pointed to, are they on the same page, or is there enough respect that LeBron has for Luke, or is he the right coach for what the expectations are for this team? And I know I've asked you about 6 different questions, but if there's a way to kind of address that gumbo that I just threw at you.
That's the only way to describe it. It's a meal where you put in 50 different ingredients, and some people can do it amazingly, and some people you're just like, yeah, no, just like you can't eat everyone's potato salad. That's just the truth. So one thing that I'll say is this: I think Luke is a very, very good young coach. There are rumors, about him staying. There's rumors about him leaving. There's rumors about college programs that are waiting for him if something does happen. There's a lot of I think if you look at the NBA and you look at the way he's handled it, the way he has been positive, the way he's handled these young guys and tried to navigate this, I go and look at like the Spoelstra situation. There was all that conversation about Spoelstra, right, all over the place. Right. And, but Pat Riley was like, hey, Bron, we got you for 4 years. You guys figure this out. Right. And I think Bron enjoyed that kind of structure and enjoyed the, learning from Pat Riley. And, LeBron, to me, when you talk about LeBron's defense, LeBron is older. He's not doing those chase down blocks. I think the last one I might have saw was in Game 7. But I'll say is he is in a space where his IQ and his defense improves during the playoffs because you're giving one task. We're taking away one thing. He knows the plays for every team, right? Similar to Rondo. Rondo and him were the first two guys that I actively saw know the plays for every team of everybody that you play. So they look better in the playoffs. They play better in the playoffs because it's one team that they're focused on and they know what their responsibilities are. But in the regular season over an 82-game stretch, it's very difficult to have that IQ show up for 48 minutes. Right. So, yes, is his defensive numbers down? But no one really said anything because every other regular season he was winning 50-plus games, right? You might mention it, but you're like, dude, the dude's averaging 27, 8, and 5, or 8 and 9. They're winning 50 games. Are we really going to nitpick about him being a little bit lazy on defense? But now that, he's in this spot where our team is struggling, all of a sudden it becomes a much bigger conversation. Yeah. So, I don't believe in everyone that I talk to is like, Brown's playing the same defense he's played for the last 7-8 years. It's just normally they couldn't say anything because he was going to the finals every year. Right. And I just think that, with the Luke situation and the Bron situation and the up top, I think, when you have rumors and conversations up top on the organization, not really given full support, right? Not giving full support, but just saying like, hey, we're not going to make a move. It's like, wait, the guy's under contract for 2 years. By doing that, by just saying those words, you're kind of putting some stuff out in the ethos that, hey, we're going to evaluate it. Yeah. Okay, well, you evaluate everyone in this. And so I just think that there's a lot going on there in that gumbo that is just not really, it just seems a little bit off. But do I still think LeBron James is the best player in the world? Yes. Do I still think that, and I'll say this, I look at him and the way he was moving before, and I look at the way he's been moving after. That's what I look at. Is the guy injured? Yes. Has the guy played a lot of basketball? Yes. Could it be father time? Yes. But do I still believe that if you were to put him in a 7-game series, right, with the same amount of talent as any other player, I still believe that he comes out victorious. Yeah. Right. That's just me because honestly, I haven't seen anything different in the last 13 years. Yeah. Right. I haven't seen anything. It doesn't mean he's won a championship every year, but he's just been that consistent of a player. So I just think that they have some work to do this summer. And I have all the faith in the world that, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is going to be what's going to happen. And I say that in kind of in a way of like, hey, if they get Anthony Davis, if they don't get Anthony Davis, only time will tell what's going to happen. So for us to try and predict and play this, magic ball thing, it's going to be difficult.
Last question. Jason Kidd, you know him well. He's been mentioned as a potential guy to replace Luke. What do you make of, without trying to create innuendo, simply you know him as a coach, what would you think of him coaching LeBron?
Well, see, and that's the thing is I don't know him as a coach. I know him as a player, and he was a great player, right? Magic Johnson was a great player, and we saw him coach, right? I think J. Kidd is a better coach than Magic, but at the end of the day, I can't say that I actually know. Yeah. Do I think Jason Kidd is a good coach? Yes, I think Jason Kidd is a good coach. Do I think Jason Kidd deserves another coaching opportunity? Yes, I think Jason Kidd deserves another coaching opportunity, but I can't speak on it from a space of I've been coached under Jason Kidd, right, and I played with LeBron. How do I think they would mesh? Right. One thing that I said when Bron called me about Luke, I said, hey, Luke's a young coach, right? You guys are similar in age, right? But at the end of the day, he worked very, very hard to get better and to improve his craft. And he's from the same pedigree, Phil Jackson, as T. Lue and Steve Kerr. He's from the same pedigree as, Lute Olson, very similar to just like Steve Kerr, right? So there's a lot of similarities to quality coaches in this league and from the same pedigree. That was the one thing that I expressed. And I was like, yes, he's young, but he's working his tail off, and he works very, very hard every day, right? And that's something that's not said about every single coach. And that's what I said to Bron when we had that conversation. After that, everything else is kind of out of the control.
Right. All right. That's it. Richard has, even though he's retired, he has places to go. And as we know, when he has places to go, he may not be able to go directly to his gate. So we have to give him a little extra time.
Okay. And I really do hope the conversation came off right. Like, we just saying this from a very friendly, loving standpoint.
Yes.
Like, hey, sometimes, I'm saying this when you see your favorite player out there, I don't want you to have a bad experience. So really what I'm just telling you is a couple of jokes in order for people to fully understand that there are good times and there are some opportunities that probably should be passed on, and just kind of say, hey, big fan, and just kind of keep moving from there.
Well said. I don't know if it's going to work, but well said.
It won't work. It won't work. It won't work. People are so mean. It won't work.
Richard, thank you as always. Appreciate it. Safe travels, and I look forward to when we get together again.
All right. Thanks.
All right. You got it. All right. That's it for this episode of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. As I said, I'm Rick Bucher, and you can find me on Bleacher Report and on Twitter at Rick Bucher. That was Richard Jefferson. You can see him on a variety of platforms. If you enjoy the show, please drop us a rating and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, and then screenshot the review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, and you'll be entered for a chance to win some swag from Ryan Hollins, Will Blackman, or myself. Speaking of Ryan Hollins, he'll be joining me in the next podcast, and we will discuss, is LeBron James falling off? Or is it, as Richard suggested, simply recovery from injury? And if indeed this Lakers team does not make the playoffs, what sort of impact will that have on the development of this team moving forward? All that and more in the very next podcast. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening.